Doug Bishop and a team of divers and sonar experts were in South Florida this past weekend trying to see if they can help solve some cold cases. And they ended up finding dozens of cars. So I wanted to dive in and share this remarkable story. Hey everyone, Alex here. And I saw there's so many news outlets that were covering this, and I because I live in Florida, I just thought so important. I would have covered it anyways, but I'm particularly excited because it was in South Florida. And there are just a lot of interesting pieces to this story. So Doug Bishop, many of you remember him from AWP Adventures with Purpose. He helped to find Kylie Rodney back in August, a year ago. He and Recon Dive Recovery and Sunshine State Sonar, as well as Josh Cantu, who helped with AWP as well. They were on, a couple of other people were there in South Florida looking for, trying to help solve some cold cases. They had a list of cars that they were looking for. And it turns out that they ended up in a lake by the Miami International Airport, and found dozens of cars in there. So it was a fascinating story. They got picked up by a lot of news outlets. So I wanted to share some of that with you and go over it together with you. Before we do that, if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, I'd appreciate if you join the Empowering family. Let's be empowering voices. Let's help support missing persons, survivors, and others who don't have a voice. So let's start here. This is the Sunshine State Sonar, headed by Mike. And they, along with Recon Dive Recovery, they focus on Florida. And I guess they've teamed up with Doug Bishop, and been down there a couple of times in the last few months. So this was really wonderful. So he had a really good recap here. I wanted to read this first. 43 submerged vehicles located in search for human remains. We wrapped up a 3-day trip to South Florida. During this trip, we teamed up with 3 amazing organizations, Recon Dive Recovery and Hilo and Sub. Over the last few days, we deployed multiple sonar boats, underwater drones, and divers in search of the missing. Our team is currently working 37 missing person cases with vehicles involved in the South Florida area. And I know the last time they were there, they focused in Broward County. And this one, I think they were mostly in Miami-Dade County. In the last 3 days, we located 43 submerged vehicles in South Florida, lakes, boat ramps, canals, and retention ponds. Sonar technicians and divers worked throughout the night, nonstop searching these waterways. We were able to dive on and identify over 30 of these vehicles. We could not confirm any remains in any of the vehicles we searched. All of our findings have been turned over to the law enforcement agencies for further investigation, and these vehicles cannot be cleared until removed. We will follow up with any updates when received. And so it says, please contact if you need any additional information on a specific vehicle. We have dive footage available if needed. So these are all the different cars that they found. You know, here it says number 31 Lincoln, plate not visible, buried. And here are some photos. We're going to go through some video here in a moment as well, but these are some of the photos that were shared. That's their list of the different cold cases. They have Coral Springs, which is in Broward, Fort Lauderdale, Key West, Lake Worth, Okeechobee, Pembroke Pines, Plantation, Pompano Beach, West Palm Beach. Doug Bishop. There's Doug again. That's Ken with Recon Dive Recovery. That's Mike there in the back. Awesome. This is Sonar. And the lake that they were referencing, where they found all the cars, is in the city of Doral, which is part of Miami-Dade County. There's a team. It's a dream team that searched and recovered the different cars. Oh, there's Josh there on the right. Okay. All right, so let's start here. Volunteer divers find 32 submerged cars in Doral Lake, possibly linked to missing persons cold cases. A diving team that took to the water in Doral has uncovered not just one underwater mystery, but nearly 3 dozen. Underwater video captured a diver finding a vehicle in the murky waters of a lake located near Miami International Airport. Divers Ken Fleming and Doug Bishop spoke with 7 News about their finds on Sunday. "We're here trying to solve missing persons cold cases," said Fleming. Okay, so let's watch the video.
On just one station, a deep dive in South Florida Lake reveals quite the discovery. Dozens of cars were found in that water.
Now police want to know if they're connected to some crime. 7's Maricela Burgos is live in Doral. She has this exclusive for us. Maricela.
Belkis, this is a group of volunteers, so they spend their own time to come out here and search these waters. It's just different bodies of water. And so you can see where they found more than 30 cars because the volunteers designated that. They put little buoys so that when police officers come here tomorrow, they'll know exactly where those cars are underwater.
We're here trying to solve missing persons cold cases.
A tough and murky mission led these divers to this lake in Doral. Their goal is to find abandoned cars.
And that's when we realized that we had 32 cars underwater.
They believe they were dumped, so cops couldn't find them.
When we discover a spot like this with multiple vehicles, it pretty much indicates a crime area where they're disposing of vehicles and hiding them from law enforcement.
These people work solely as volunteers. They travel across the state using sonar technology to search bodies of water.
We have a giant database of our own that we extract where we go, this person is missing with their vehicle in this general region of South Florida. And so we have 40 that we're targeting right now of folks that disappeared, anywhere from 2 or 3 months ago to 30, 40 years ago.
This mission brought them to an area near Northwest 87th Avenue and 13th Terrace, near Miami International Airport, where they say nearly 36 cars are at the bottom of this lake. And they're hopeful their efforts will help police solve cases.
We have a case where someone drove from Pinellas County down to pick up their relatives at the airport, and then they disappeared. So in this spot, we're near the airport. It's a large body of water. It has easy access to get into. So we would target that as a potential foul play spot.
So far, statewide, they say they found 60 cars underwater that were linked to crimes. When asked why they do this, the reason is simple for them.
It's about providing answers for families where they don't have them. Departments respectfully have to justify their use of resources, and when a case goes cold, we have the ability to step in. We don't have to justify our use of resources, and we can help eliminate the drag on personnel locally. We can do this. We specialize in it. We can do it on a high level and do so as volunteers.
And we're told Miami-Dade police officers will be back here at the lake tomorrow to recover these cars. Live in Doral, Maricela Burgos, 7 News.
The divers' next step is to work with Miami-Dade County to remove all 32 vehicles. They said they will give any information they find to police to hopefully help in any cold cases. Sunday afternoon, a spokesperson for Doral Police issued a statement that reads, "We have been informed that a private search company possibly located multiple sunken vehicles in the area of 9064 Northwest 13th Terrace. Although we cannot confirm at this time, we will continue to gather further information in the coming days and work with multiple entities to investigate this matter." Now, this is from WFLA, which many of you remember from the Gabby Petito, Brian Laundrie story, and they've covered a lot of other cases since then. Sunken vehicles found in Florida Lake could be connected to unsolved crimes, police say. Police in South Florida searched for several dozen vehicles in a lake Tuesday morning. The Miami-Dade Police Department said, so what sounds like what happened was that they discovered, so the team led by Doug Bishop and the other, the Sonar and the diving company team, they found these cars and then they passed it over to the police department to then do the next step. And that happened on Tuesday. So they were there over the weekend. Ken actually, I messaged Ken from Recon Dive Recovery, and he told me that they had left on Sunday. So the police went in on Tuesday, and that's part of why a lot of these different stations and these different news outlets are covering it, because the police get involved. So whenever the police get involved, it's like, okay, like take it up a notch here. The Miami-Dade Police Department said it received information from a citizen who was diving in a lake in the Doral area. So that was the team. The civilian told police that he observed the vehicles inside the water, which led to officers from the MDPD and Doral Police Department working together to recover the vehicles. NDPD spokesperson Alvaro Zabaleta said the first vehicle they recovered was confirmed to be stolen. Let's see if we can listen here.
The Miami-Dade Police Department, in collaboration with the Doral Police Department and the Miami-Dade Fire Rescue, are here today at the area of 13th Terrace, Northwest 90th Avenue. It's a lake that's just behind us. We received information from a citizen on Sunday that apparently he was diving out here and he observed what appeared to be several dozen vehicles that have been dumped in this lake. Of course, once we received this information, our divers unit immediately collaborated with the other agencies.
It's right, they're right next to the airport, so.
Our divers unit immediately contacted the other agencies, the Doral Police Department and Miami-Dade Fire Rescue, so we can put this operation together in order to be able to recover all of the vehicles that are inside. This morning, you saw that you had divers from Miami-Dade Fire Rescue and along with Miami-Dade Police divers in here starting to pull out. They did pull out one vehicle. The first vehicle they pulled out is a 2002 Altima, and we just got word from the Doral Police Department that it is confirmed stolen vehicle. And these are the most likely the type of vehicles that we're going to find here dumped in this lake. Vehicles that perhaps have been abandoned and they wanted to get rid of them and they got rid of them here, or those that took them for a joyride, they were stolen and then they were dumped inside the lake. Of course, it doesn't just, we're not going to discard the possibility of some type of fraud that can also could occur and some type of foul plays like a homicide. And that's why we also had our homicide bureau. We had our detectives here present. They showed up because of the fact, and they're close by, they're only a phone call away. In the event we were to find something that, of course, links our homicide bureau or a death investigation that has to occur. Nothing that we have, no information that we have so far would lead us to believe that these cases are going to go and elevate to that level where a homicide bureau is going to have to get involved. But nonetheless, once the citizens told us that we have several dozen vehicles here, it is now our responsibility to be able to recover these vehicles and let's see how many cases we can close. There's some that, and like particularly the first one we got out, that's one stolen vehicle case that now does not remain open pending. And throughout the investigation, we don't know what they're going to find. That perhaps we can then find who the person is responsible for this. So it's important when the community, just another example, and when the community works together with the police department, things can get done. And in this particular case, this information was passed along, and now we're able to do something about it. The neighboring businesses here are being very cooperative with us, even though we're invading their space. They're being very cooperative because, again, they also want to be able to do their part in helping out. So we can't urge enough to the community that no matter how simple something may seem, please call Crime Stoppers 471-TIPS. Give us that information because no matter how small it may be, it could help us close cases, just like on this first vehicle that Doral now is going to be able to close one of their stolen vehicle cases.
The volunteer divers had said they counted some 30. Is the plan to remove all 30? I know
it's hard to know how many are out there because I spoke to our divers earlier this morning before they went into the water, and they said they were here yesterday. And they know when they were here diving and they were putting the buoys up on cars and so forth, they think it's about 20. It's hard to say how many until they comb the whole surface and see how many they actually have. What they did confirm to me when they dove yesterday is that majority of the vehicles that are in there are very old vehicles, just like the one we just saw, leading us to believe that these vehicles were dumped in this lake probably way before these warehouses were even here. So that's how far back it goes. I don't know if this vehicle in 2002 was dumped in 2002, but clearly, as you can see, the state of the vehicle, this vehicle's been there for a while. So that's probably what we're thinking. The condition of all of the vehicles we pull out are going to be in. Nonetheless, we can still read VINs, we can still run those cars. If they do have auto theft cases, stolen vehicle cases attached to them, we can close these cases now and not leave them open pending forever.
How many cars have you pulled out so far?
Well, we have one right now, but over here to our right, you can see the buoys there. And just to our right alone, just by counting those buoys, I can very easily tell you that there's probably 5 buoys right there on that one spot. So it's hard to say, and that's what makes it difficult on these diving operations. Once they go underwater, the visibility is minimal. And the second, even though we have beautiful weather today, and secondly, is the fact that the water, once they go in there, you don't know where the current's going to take them. So some of these vehicles may be further out, which again makes it that much more complex on the recovery efforts.
Is there a statute of limitation on the vehicle fraud?
There is a statute of limitation on felonies. So again, there is on them, but if we find something that's in connection with that, a death investigation, then the statute of limitation doesn't apply anymore.
Interesting.
So we don't know when they've been dumped. So we have to go back once we pull the car out, run that bin. It is stolen. When was it reported stolen? And then if we're within that statute of limitation.
Oh, here's another plane.
I couldn't tell the make and model of that vehicle that we pulled out because clearly it's an older model. But Doral PD just confirmed to us not only that it's stolen, but he said it was an Altima 2002.
And you've only so far pulled out one?
We've only pulled out one so far. As you can see, the divers are here. They got to use a boat to probably try to pull these vehicles closer to where the cranes and then from the tow trucks can actually pull them out. Because of the fact that we got guardrails here, we have trees, we have parking lots. It makes it a little more difficult. It's not as easy as it perhaps may seem. Go in, bring the divers, pull them out. Essentially, that's what it takes. But sometimes the logistics make it a little more difficult.
You'll double check on the make and model first?
We absolutely will. But that was the information that was given to us before. It could have been. I didn't see the vehicle when it printed out.
It looks a lot older.
I shot the.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was
That's a legend.
A legend. Accurate.
Could be.
Mm-hmm.
I'll double check on that, but that's what he just told me.
Can you talk about? Go ahead.
No, I just what about the claims that this could be linked to cold cases?
I mean, that's what we heard as well. But our cold case squad that are constantly working cases, and as you guys well know, we put it out to the community that they're constantly closing 10, 12-year-old cases, and they're constantly working on these cold cases, and there's no evidence or there's no information, tips that's led any of our cold case homicide guys to this lake. So nothing leads us to believe that we are possibly going to find anything. We're never going to discard it, hence why we had our detectives here from homicide present, when that first car was pulled out. If in fact they do something, the divers do find something, absolutely the notification will begin. That's when everything starts all over, and then you'll see a lot more movement.
So that was like a little mini press conference. And so they said that so I guess the Doug's team said that they found about 30 cars. The spokesperson said that there was about 20 vehicles. Now remember that Sunshine State Sonar is an expert in sonar. So maybe they found more vehicles potentially. I don't know. It's just why the discrepancy there. Not sure. Okay. So here is the map of where they are. So the map actually is right here, right? Kind of like where it says Champions right here. That's the address. But this is a bigger lake. And I remember that I many years ago was doing something with this, and my boss called it the Finger Lakes, and I guess it's because it looks like a hand, right? So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4 fingers and a thumb. And all of this is like there's industrial buildings in here. So I think right here this is a Goya, right? So that's a food factory. Here it says Stanley Steamer, Jet Shop, Planet Air Sports, USA Bouquet, Badia Spices, Logistics. So this is all like warehouses and things like that, which makes it actually kind of a little bit more eerie, right? If somebody dumps cars in these little areas or right here at the end here. So really interesting to see. Okay, now this is WFLA had like a live feed yesterday, and I'm putting this at 1.5 speed, but let's watch a little bit of this.
Good afternoon, folks. JB here with you live on WFLA Now. We are live from South Florida. The Miami-Dade Police Department participating and coordinating a recovery effort at a lake in Florida. We're still working on exact details for you on WFLA.com, but this is an active recovery effort that is currently underway. We're looking here live at a vehicle that moments ago was just pulled up from a lake in Florida. And according to the Miami-Dade Police Department, they say that several dozen vehicles have been found in this lake. And this is just the first one that, as we understand it, is being recovered this morning here in South Florida. Now, according to the Miami-Dade Police Department, they say that they received information about vehicles in a lake in the Doral area. And then upon examination from the MDPD divers unit, they went in and found all of these vehicles. And now the recovery effort is underway to pull them from the bottom of this Florida lake. Now, why all of these vehicles are down there, that remains unclear. How long these vehicles have been down there remains unclear. We're following this both on the ground and as well. We're monitoring this from the air as well. Take a look here at the operation as it currently unfolds from the news helicopter. I believe this is the chopper with NBC6 South Florida. And there you can see the first vehicle that was pulled up by this crane. And again, as a reminder, several dozen cars are said to be down there, according to the police department. So this is a recovery operation that could be taking several hours, if not multiple days, depending, of course, on how long it takes for each individual one to be pulled up. Also, as well, we have seen with vehicle recoveries in the past, you can't just pull up every vehicle like this. Sometimes long-term impacts from water will lead to the deterioration of the vehicle itself to the point where you can't pull it clean out of the water like this. It will literally break apart. So as we go back down here to the ground shot, you'll see that this vehicle is intact enough to where it's being pulled out of the water all in one piece. But we have seen other recoveries where if you try to pull it out of the water like this, it'll just rip a piece off because it can't handle the weight of the entire vehicle. There you can see, okay, so now we're looking there at that. Is that an Acura? You can see the logo there on the steering wheel.
Just say, it did look
And
like
if we have a better shot of the hood of the car, we might be able to make out the exact make. Also, if you're in our comment section right now, and you're a car in and act off of the lake, what these beach vehicles, a pile up of vehicles that they're cleaning out of the lake, all of that remains unclear at this moment. We're trying to get more information, and we're passing along details to you. In the story that we have posted on WFLA.com, if you click on the link in the description on this video, you'll find the link to our updated story with what we're learning about, again, several dozen vehicles being found in a lake in South Florida in the Doral area. If it appears to be front driver's
okay,
side
they're going to
tire.
put it down.
The rim is no longer a circle pentagon. Yeah, as Debbie is wondering in our comment section, is this a lake of stolen cars? Were these cars put in the lake as part of the cover-up? That remains to be learned. We don't know exactly why these vehicles are in the lake, but most of the people in our comment section right now saying hello to David, to Bonnie, to Lizzie, Derek, Sunshine, including, that's Sunshine State Sonar. Saying hello to them. They're a volunteer search organization here in Florida.
Yeah, they're the ones who helped find the vehicles.
Yeah, a lot of folks who are wondering what this could be connected to. Let's go again to the aerial shot and show you what it looks like from the air. And there you can see the various towing equipment that have been brought in to bring these vehicles in from the lake. You can see that they have water vessels. And they still do, I believe, have divers in the water, including you see one scuba diver who's sitting there lakeside. And the chopper would give us the best view, but let's just go to the ground shot here because they're now checking out. We got some police investigators that are looking a little bit closer. And perhaps the most important piece of information that they could grab from the vehicle is going to be the VIN, the vehicle identification number. Within moments, investigators will be able to span that number and look up the DMV history on that vehicle and determine, who it's been registered to, when it was last registered. They can pull up a lot of information by looking at the vehicle identification number. So we just saw an officer or an investigator looking for something on the driver's side, really near where the driver would be.
Chopper 6 checking in here once again. We're hovering over the Doral area, watching officials pull these.
A few more divers in there.
Apologies for some of the stray audio we had come in there, folks. But yes, back to what we were talking about. So what the investigator might have been looking for was the vehicle identification number, which would give a lot of DMV history to the investigative team working this case. They're taking a picture, and that oftentimes is where a vehicle identification number is located. Oftentimes you can find it on the door, on the driver's side door. So that is a possibility as to what was photographed there by the law enforcement team.
That would be sick. Is there a small one?
Yeah.
Always love the commentary.
There's the possibility of there being bodies in the water. There has been no indication for you on WFLA.com.
No, that's the problem.
So there must be another car right there.
Really? No, I can't turn on the light. So I'm gonna have to feed all this time. Okay. Probably right. Let me go check for this one. Lights off. I got it. Sometimes we're something like that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cookie something. So what I'll do, let's say like my boots. Yeah. Let's say the dive team is in there now. Those markers represent cars that the volunteer dive team marked over the weekend. But here's what they're pulling out. Taking your video. Right now, they can't say whether or not these are connected to any crimes or
none of that video. Anything after that, you can have that.
That's fine. But I can say that. That'll be fine.
Is that an airbag there? Flotation device? Now I wanted to share, there were a couple of videos on NewsNation that they interviewed the guys, and I thought they were pretty good, so let's watch them.
Surprising discovery was made by a team of divers who have a surprising story of their own. The divers are all volunteers who found the cars while on another mission, searching underwater for clues to solve missing persons cold cases. They combine their talents in diving and sonar technology and missing person case research to search underwater for cars and other clues to help solve cases that in some instances have gone cold for years. Ken Fleming is the founder of Recon Dive Recovery, and Mike Sullivan is the founder of Sunshine State Sonar. Both join me now. Great to have you both with us. Ken, I'd like to start with you. You found these cars after diving into this lake. Why were you searching there in the first place?
So our research from across the multiple teams have brought us to this lake. Specifically, we were looking for one of the cold cases for Robert Gilchrist. He was in our area, Pinellas County, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, and he had traveled south to Miami to pick up his family at the airport, and he never arrived. He had made a phone call to his sister along the way saying he was uncomfortable with someone that he'd picked up along the way. Later, we found that his credit cards were used after they were supposed to be picked up. His vehicle and his body were never found. Flash forward, that was 20 years. 20 years ago, a body was found with a gunshot wound to the head. And DNA within the last month linked that to his body through DNA research. And now we're still looking for the car because there may be evidence leading to the perpetrator of the crime. So we started looking near the airport in a possible dump zone, industrial locations, easy access, no guardrails, or things that where the buildings may not have been there and had easy access years ago. And this was one of the first locations. We found 32 vehicles in this pond alone. But over the course of the last 4 days, we found 44 in that area.
What's the deal? I mean, Mike, why are people putting cars in underwater?
So it was 32 in this pond, but he said up to 44 in the area. So there's other ponds there, and I'll show you the map in a second. But there's a lot of lakes in that area.
Unless it's to cover up some sort of a crime. Why are people putting cars in underwater unless it's to cover up some sort of a crime? You sell a used car, or if you don't want the car anymore, you can sell it for parts. I mean, who drives it into a lake?
I know these vehicles are there for all different reasons. You know, some of them are used in robberies, homicides, insurance fraud. Some are stolen. One of the vehicles we found, the oldest vehicle, was a 1940 Mercury coupe, a Mercury 8 coupe. So, these vehicles are there from the 40s, 50s, 60s, all the way up until, I think the latest was like a late model 2000, maybe like a 2005 or something like that. So, they're there for, not good reasons, I can tell you that.
Yeah, Ken, you were all volunteers on this crew working to solve cold cases involving people who've disappeared. You've already solved, as you said, 4 cold cases just so far this year. How did you do that? How do you find the bodies? How do you solve these cases?
So we go through databases and we look for cases specifically where the person is missing with their vehicle. The vehicle's never shown up on an automated license plate reader, ALPR, or never shown up in a junkyard or scrapped or sold or anything like that. So we assume here in Florida, we have so much water, we assume that the vehicle may be underwater. So we start looking at what's available through open source intelligence, and we look at where the person lived, where they worked, the things they like to do in between living and working, and family members, things like that. And we develop pattern of life, and then we draw a 5-mile radius out from that, and we start searching along their normal routes of travel, and then also alternate routes. And we just don't give up. You know, we when we recovered Robert Heiko, we had done that search 6 or 7 times, and Mike had done it before I had even come out. So we start, with Sonar. We do foot searches, but mostly it's Sonar dive work.
Yeah, I'm looking at the video right now. This is really murky water you guys are diving at. Is it a combination? Really?
That's a clean one. When we go down on some of these, it goes through a layer of hydrogen sulfide, which actually smells like rotten eggs, and then it looks like the rings of Saturn. It starts getting darker and darker, and then you pop through to just total blackness. And then when you hit the bottom, the silt comes up and blacks out everything that you can see. So we dive in a certain way with our feet up and our heads down so that we don't disturb the silt with our fins, and we try really hard to not disturb the silt. But at some places, these are buried 3-4 feet. Sometimes we only see the top of the roof sticking out, or one tire sticking out, which Mike was able to sonar our vehicle and find just one tire sticking out. And we were able to dig down, pull the plate out, and identify it. So a lot of this is by touch contact. Robert Helfrey, I identified his plate just by touch feel, memorized it, wrote it down on the surface because it was zero visibility, and you can just hear me calling the numbers out through my regulator to the camera, so I don't forget the numbers all the way up.
Mike, are you using the sonar just to look for cars? Or are you also looking for bodies? I mean, what are you looking for?
We do work cases. Yeah, we do work cases that cars are not involved. But majority of the cases that we do work, we're looking for vehicles where someone's missing in a vehicle.
Thanks so much for watching.
And this is Ashley Banfield with NewsNation, and I think she's setting up Doug here. It was an interview with Doug as the one who found Kylie Rodney. This must have been just a small clip from a larger segment. So let's see. Let's take a listen.
Doug Bishop is a diver who made the discovery, and I am thrilled to say he's joining me now live. Doug, first of all, wow, way to go! What a find! What are your first thoughts about what you and your pals have come across?
This is pretty typical for what it is that we all do. No vehicle's underwater for a good reason. And we're really optimistic about the potential answers that some of these vehicles that we discover beneath the surface of that lake there may hold.
But I'm thinking, you're doing this work, you're trying to solve cold cases by diving and finding these vehicles that may have been where the missing person was last driving. But Shazam, you come across 32 of them all at once. That has to be an anomaly in your line of work.
Yes. And anytime we find as many cars in one spot, it's definitely indicative of a possible organized crime unit and definitely a dumping ground of sorts. And, we're talking about the time frames you just mentioned. There's a lot of organized crime, a lot of cartel activity during those decades in South Florida.
One thing there, I just wanted to say real quick here. When I was in college, I studied in South America. And I was at my host family's house. We went out to somewhere out in the town one weekend, and the father who's driving the car proceeds to tell me as I'm in the back seat that his car that car that we were in had been stolen to do a hit. So basically, some organized crime or gang or something, somebody took the car, stole the car, killed somebody, put the person in that car, and just abandoned the car. In this case, they're talking about people dumping it into the water. But that other case, it was just somebody. So, I mean, it does happen. I mean, mind you, I'm sitting in the back seat are you freaking kidding me? And, but yeah, so, I mean, it does happen. So either dump it on the side of the road or in the woods or wherever, or here in the water.
One thing, this is definitely not a Doug Bishop thing. This is a team thing. We had Sunshine State Sonar and Recon Dive Recovery and a lot of other people there that made this happen. This was a huge team effort of multiple teams together that were out there working 20 hours over the last few days in order to locate these vehicles and dive on them all in some really bad conditions. So it's hats off to them. All credit goes to those guys, and they deserve it all for sure.
Well, you're certainly self-effacing, but I'm going to say what I heard about you and your work was that you were feeling out the plates almost by braille to get that information to the surface. So you're effectively supplying the police with what could be evidence that will solve, cold cases that could be cold back to the 40s.
Correct. Absolutely. Just because none of these vehicles matched up to the cases that we had in our databases, doesn't mean that these vehicles are connected to other missing persons cases that just weren't reported. And just because a vehicle is considered dumped and stolen, we also know that the bodies turn up in stolen, dumped vehicles, especially from those decades and that time frame. It's actually a very popular method of disposing of human remains related to various criminal activities.
So, I'm not sure if the police are telling you much, or if the police even really know much, because this is just happening really as we speak. But have they shared anything with you, given the fact that you were the person that brought this trove of sort of mysterious evidence?
Yeah, we're in very close communication with the Miami-Dade Marine Unit. They were very thankful with the method in which, our teams marked these vehicles, catalog the data and intelligence that the divers were able to go down there and retrieve. And it's making this recovery process a lot more efficient for them. And it's going to take some time. The weather was bad today. They were able to recover 4 of those vehicles, which is really hard to do with vehicles this old. And there's a long way to go. And they're going to work very hard. They're taking it very seriously. I will tell you that.
Sure, of course. They're not saying anything officially yet, Doug, about the possibility of human remains in any of these vehicles, but you said it, right off the top of the show, no car is submerged at the bottom of a lake for a good reason. And I'm just curious if there's any, quiet whispers around all those homicide detectives who are standing by, because there just might be a revelation. Are you hearing anything about the possibilities at this point?
Oh, absolutely. They are on the edge of their seats. They fully expect any one of those vehicles to possibly hold answers for a family and their community in one of their cases. It's extremely likely, especially when there's that many vehicles in one location. Does that mean that's going to happen? No, absolutely not. But the odds are there that one of those vehicles could possibly hold answers and clues to a case that's long been forgotten about.
I'm trying to picture, you guys down there diving. It's murky. You're probably not surprised if you come across one vehicle, maybe even 2. But when you started to see sort of this train wreck of vehicles that were down there, I'm picturing your eyes bugging out under your mask. Like, take me there. Give me your thought process and what you instantly were believing about the scene you were witnessing.
Yeah, no sooner than we got there, Mike Sullivan with Sunshine State Sonar, what you're seeing right now in the boat, he wasn't on the water no more than 15 minutes before, he said he found 3 cars. And a couple minutes goes by, there's 6 cars, there's 8 cars, there's 12 cars. So it's in our line of work. This is why we do what we do. We're hunting cars underwater, and we have that many cars in one place. We know we have our work cut out for us, but that's what we're after. That's exactly why we do what we do. And it's some very intense moments topside when the divers are all diving. It's some very intense diving as well. We're talking very, at times low visibility. You don't know what's next to you, whether it's an alligator or a fish, but you have a mission that you're focused on, and what you're doing. It has to be very thorough. When we're down there, we're cataloging, the intelligence from those vehicles, makes, model, license plate, and whatever we can come up with while we're down there. That way, when we get back topside, we can turn that intelligence over to the authorities, so then they can take it from there.
Thank you for watching.
So here is a lake in question. You see, kind of looks like the fingers. And so this is the airport over here. And as you see, there are a lot of waterways just right in that little area. This is Miami. There's just a lot of waterways. But in that particular area, there is a lot. Look up here. This is where the Trump National Doral is. Just look at all of these little waterways. So there's a lot of waterways. And let me put it into layers so that we could see it as well. So right there, there's a pretty big waterway. Look at this. This is going into like a highway. Look at all of the little waterways around the highway over here as well. And so just a lot of waterways in this area. And I don't know how deep they are, but they only need to be deep enough to maybe be a foot or 2 above the car, and you won't even see it. So interesting, huh? So that's the map. Wow, so incredible work from Doug Bishop with United Search Corps, Josh Cantu, Ken from Recon Dive Recovery, and Mike Sullivan with the Sunshine State Sonar, and the whole team, everyone that was there, because I know it was not just them, but it was a team effort. along with the local police from the Doral and Miami-Dade County who were investigating and getting their dive teams out there, and the tow trucks, as you saw. So, wow, just really, really remarkable. I'm gonna I put a request to interview at least one of these guys because I'm so fascinated with this work. They're in my backyard, so I really want to continue to support them as much as possible to see if they can solve some of these cold cases in Florida. Like Ken said, there was one case where somebody in out of the Tampa area, Tampa St. Pete area, who ended up in South Florida, was going to pick up somebody at the airport and never made it. Right. So it was just that's like a state, cross state case. So just really, really amazing work that these guys do. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and love to hear what you think of the team and of the recovery. And if you enjoyed this video, if you learned something new, I'd appreciate if you hit the thumbs up. And now is a great time for me to announce that I have changed the name of my channel from Empowering True Crime to Empowering Survivors, and still working through it a little bit. In some places I'm calling it Empowering Survivors and Stories, but the idea is that I'm going to be stepping away from the hard true crime stories and doing the things that I'm really, really passionate about, which is sharing the stories of survivors, helping people to get their power back, to share their voice, in some cases giving a voice to those who don't have one. And the empowering news that makes me feel good, that uplifts us, that inspires us, that empowers us, instead of what's been happening, which is that getting some of this really low energy type content. And I'm just like, no. I remember when I first started my channel, and even still to today, one of the comments, the comment that I get the most is, "You're too bubbly for true crime. You're too cheerful for true crime." And I took it personally. I thought it was an insult. And you know what? That was a sign that, yes, I'm not meant for true crime. Right? So I'll still continue to cover some stories where we want to get justice and advocacy for survivors, of course. But I really want to share those stories that are uplifting. Like I just posted, and I'm going to put a link here, of an 87-year-old woman from Maine who was woken up in the middle of the night by an attacker who happened to be a minor, underage, and he was attacking her. She fought back. He said he was hungry. She ended up feeding him, and he ended up getting arrested. And but she was such an inspiration to me, that an 87-year-old woman fight back, and do what she needs to do to take care of herself. And those are the stories that I'm going to be sharing more of. And other fun stories, like I love doing stories about dogs and pets, and other good news stories. Education, how can we learn? What are the learning lessons from some of these stories that we hear from these survivors? So those are the types of stories I'm going to be emphasizing, and I will still be covering a little bit of the true crime stories that I had been covering before, because I do want to make sure that there's justice. And I'll just be doing it from maybe a different angle, maybe do less of the hard news angle, and maybe more from the victim focused or the family side, or tributes and things like that. So if you like that change that I'm making, let me know in the comments as well. And if that's not your bag, if that's not your cup of tea, and you like me because I was covering more of the hard news, true crime stuff, and you no longer want to be part of this community, that's fine too. I wish you the best, but I know that the majority of my audience, that you, the community, love the positive news as well, and ways for us to learn and grow together. So if that is your cup of tea and that interests you, and you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please subscribe and join the empowering family. and let's continue to share the stories of survivors, advocate and find justice for those who don't have a voice, and just overall share those stories, share those voices, and support the community. So with that, stay safe, stay thriving. Remember to trust your intuition, trust your gut, and let's make sure to keep it empowering. Bye for now. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell button for notifications. Thank you.